From the moment the first settlers stepped upon the vast and untamed lands of the new continent, the seeds of conflict were sown between those who sought to claim the soil for themselves and those who had called it home for generations. Long before the sails of foreign empires appeared upon the horizon, the ground itself carried stories of struggle and survival. But when the newcomers came, driven by hunger, faith, and ambition, those stories turned to battles as the colonists carved their existence out of wilderness and fear. They encountered the native peoples, whose knowledge of the land far surpassed their own, yet whose fate would soon be bound to theirs by the relentless march of expansion. Alliances were made and broken as easily as the fragile peace between fires and fields, as rival empires from across the ocean sent their ships and soldiers to secure dominion over this fertile new world. The settlers became both pawns and players in a greater game of conquest. The sound of musket fire echoed through forests and valleys, and the first blood that would mark the birth of a nation was shed in conflicts that blurred the lines between survival and sovereignty. From these early wars came lessons of endurance and identity, lessons that would shape the spirit of a people, learning to fight not only for land, but for the right to define their destiny. The colonies grew restless beneath the rule of distant kings, their loyalty eroded by the weight of taxes, decrees, and neglect. The same courage that had driven them to cross an ocean now turned inward as they began to question the authority that claimed their obedience. When protest failed, rebellion rose. The sound of rebellion thundered through towns and fields, and the people who had once seen themselves as subjects became soldiers for a cause greater than any crown. In that crucible of struggle, they discovered what it meant to be a nation forged not by decree, but by determination. The battles that followed were not only against an empire, but against despair itself. The cold winters, hunger, and loss testing their will to endure. Yet through those hardships, the vision of liberty burned brighter. And when victory finally came, it was not the end of war, but the beginning of a new chapter for the young nation, now born in conflict, would find that its survival demanded constant vigilance. No sooner had independence been won than new threats arose from without and within. The boundaries of the republic were uncertain. The ambitions of neighboring powers and the resistance of indigenous nations kept the frontier aflame. The wilderness that stretched beyond the settlements became a stage for endless campaigns, where soldiers marched beneath blazing suns and freezing skies to secure a dream written in dust and blood. As the nation expanded westward, the promise of opportunity came in hand with the shadow of displacement. Treaties signed and broken, wars fought and forgotten, yet each step forward carried the echo of those who stood their ground. The land became both prize and battlefield, and as the borders of the nation grew, so too did its confidence and its contradictions. The call of destiny led armies across mountains and plains, their flags waving over territories newly claimed but not easily kept. Every victory bore the weight of loss, and every conquest left behind a question of justice that lingered like smoke in the air. The growing nation's might was tested again as it turned its gaze southward and across the seas, engaging in wars that would project its power far beyond its own shores and shape the balance of empires. The drums of war beat not only for defense, but for ambition, as the Republic sought to define its place among nations. Yet even as it triumphed abroad, the greatest conflict awaited within its own heart. When the divisions of ideology and belief tore the country in two, the war that followed was a storm that no one could escape. Brother against brother, Fields turned to graveyards and cities to ruins. The ideals that had united a people now clashed in violent opposition, and the question of what freedom truly meant was written in blood upon the earth. When at last the guns fell silent, the nation stood wounded yet unbroken. From that abyss it emerged transformed, scarred by its own reflection, but resolute in its survival. The price of unity was immense, yet through it the Republic renewed its purpose and pressed forward toward a new era of strength, industry, and ambition. The armies that had once marched across their own homeland now looked outward again, as technology advanced and the nation grew restless with its own power. The age of empire dawned, and with it the call to intervene in lands far from home. The world was changing, and America stepped onto the global stage as both a symbol of hope and a wielder of might. In distant islands and across vast oceans, its soldiers fought under foreign suns, carrying not only weapons, but ideals that they believed would reshape the world. Yet each victory brought new burdens, and each conquest new doubts. As the 20th century approached, the scale of war expanded beyond imagination. The old forms of combat gave way to machines that could destroy cities in hours. And the nation that had once fought for independence now found itself defending the independence of others. The great wars of the modern age drew its sons and daughters into conflicts of unprecedented scale, where the line between heroism and horror blurred amidst the roar of engines and the thunder of artillery. From the trenches to the skies, the struggle was not only for land, but for the future of humanity itself. And when peace returned, it was never complete, for the aftermath of each war planted the seeds of the next. The victors bore the heavy crown of responsibility, and the soldiers returned home to build anew, even as the memories of battle haunted their dreams. Yet the nation endured and prospered, driven by innovation and the belief that its destiny remained righteous. As the world divided once more into rival camps, the struggle took new forms, the battlefield stretching from frozen mountains to jungles unseen, from deserts to seas. The enemies now were not empires, but ideas, and the wars waged in the name of security and freedom carried with them questions that no victory could silence. Still, the march of progress continued, and through each generation, new warriors rose to bear the burden of defense, their courage echoing that of those who had come before. Though the faces and weapons changed, the heart remained constant. The belief in a cause, the loyalty to comrades, the hope that beyond the smoke and silence there awaited peace, and the dream for which they were fought would at last be fulfilled.